Okay, guys, and we're back with another episode of the Seth Solo Side Quest. And today's topic, we're going to be talking about Trump's tariffs and are they potentially being effective? Are they quietly, you know, causing revolution that's sparking the global supply chain? Now, you're probably thinking tariffs, really? More tariffs? Because everyone and their mother has been talking about tariffs, but stick with me. This isn't just about taxes on imports, it's about how a single policy is basically rewriting the rules of global trade, forcing companies to abandon decade old supply chains, reshore jobs, and rethink everything from where they mine lithium to where they stitch t shirts. Now, the BBC recently dropped a fascinating piece on this, and companies are fleeing China, scrambling to Vietnam, India, Mexico, even Rwanda. So, are Trump's tariffs actually working, or is it all just expensive chaos? But first, let's recap Trump's tariff playbook. He slapped 60% tariffs on Chinese goods, 50% on EVs, and 25% on steel and aluminium. The goal? Force companies to ditch China, bring manufacturing home, and decouple the US economy from its biggest rival. And for 30 years, companies have built factories in China for cheap labor, lax regulations, and a one stop shop for everything from iPhones to solar panels. But Trump's tariffs flipped the math overnight. Suddenly, that $100 gadget costs $160 to import. And the immediate fallout caused corporate panic. Apple, Tesla, and Walmart started recalculating moving factories isn't like switching Netflix plans, it takes years and often costs billions. The S&P 500 dipped 5% as investors braced for higher costs. And China hit back with tariffs on US soybeans and Boeing jets. Classic trade war playbook. But here's the twist, it's working. Not smoothly, definitely not painlessly, but it's working. Now, let's get into the meat of it. Where are companies fleeing to? And what does this mean for the global economy? Now, businesses aren't fully leaving China, they're hedging. Think China for local sales, Vietnam, Mexico, India for exports. Samsung now makes 50% of its phones in Vietnam. Tesla's building a $5 billion gigafactory in Mexico, and Apple's shifting iPad production to India. This now makes new manufacturing hubs. Vietnam's the biggest winner. Exports to the US surged 25% in 2024. Cheap labour, stable politics, and a 0% tariff deal with the EU. Second is Mexico. Now the US top trade partner overtaking China. Factories in Monterrey are booming. 3. India. Modi is offering subsidies, tax breaks, and a billion consumers. Apple plans to make 25% of its iPhones there by 2026. And fourth, Rwanda. Oddly, yeah, companies like Vivo are testing apparel factories here to avoid African tariffs. Obviously, this comes with higher prices. Reshoring isn't cheap. Mexican wages are 4% China's, and Vietnam's factories lack China's infrastructure. It takes 3 years to build a semiconductor plant. This means delays. Meanwhile, the tech industry is still stuck in limbo. And of course, there's geopolitical risks. Vietnam's closing up to China. Mexico's cartel violence disrupts shipments. India's bureaucracy moves at a sloth speed. Okay, now let's talk about winners and losers, because in trade wars, there's no such thing as a free lunch. Winners, US manufacturing. Biden's CHIPS Act plus Trump's tariffs equals a $300 billion surge in factory construction. Ohio, Texas, and Arizona are booming. Mexico, Vietnam, and India, their economies are continually growing 6 to 8% annually thanks to foreign investment. Now, sort of the consumers, because you've got more jobs in the US, but also meaning higher prices for gadgets and cars. Losers. China is losing its crown as factory of the world. Youth unemployment hit 21% as factories have already started to close. Small businesses. Mum and pop shops can't afford to relocate supply chains. Many are just going to shut up doors. Also, the environment. shipping goods from Vietnam instead of China adds 15% more carbon emissions. And the irony is, Trump's tariffs were meant to hurt China, but they're also squeezing US allies. Europe is fuming over Chinese EVs flooding their markets now. It's like a game of whack-a-mole, but with economies. Okay, here's the $1 trillion question. Is this supply chain shuffle sustainable, or will companies slink back to China once the political winds shift? First, you've got the stickiness factor. Once you build a $5 billion factory in Mexico, you're not packing up next year. Supply chains are like tattoos, painful to remove, and Apple is now stuck with India for decades. The China dilemma. China's not sitting idle. They're slashing prices, offering secret subsidies, and threatening to ban rare earth metal exports. It's like a game of chicken. Who blinks first? Of course, future political wildcards. If Trump loses his next term, will his successor roll back tariffs? It's unlikely now that both parties agree on decoupling from China. It's not a policy, it's a paradigm shift. And then lastly, the human cost. US workers in Coolidge, Arizona gained 3,000 factory jobs, but housing costs would have spiked. Layoffs for Chinese workers in Guangdong have led to protests. And you've got Mexican workers. Some of these jobs may pay better, but cartels are infiltrating logistic routes. So, are the Trump tariffs working? Depends on who you ask. If the goal was to reduce reliance on China, create jobs in the US, and reshore critical industries, yes. Awkwardly, expensively, yes, they are working. But if the goal was to make America great, in the sense of cheap, easy, and painless, nah. This is messy, unequal, and full of unintended consequences. But the truth is, globalization isn't dying, it's mutating. Supply chains are becoming more regional, more politicized, and more fragile. And whether that's a win or a loss depends on where you're standing. But yeah, guys, another episode of the Seth Solo Side Quest in the bag. Be curious to know what your thoughts are in the comments below. And I'm out. Peace.